Okay, we're recording, buddy. Okay, thank you everybody who has tuned in. Thank you so much for our next rainy day edition of Let's Talk Tech COVID edition. It's like the federal government really doesn't like Matt or I very much, because as soon as we did our last webinar, they changed the rules the next day. So we had to do a quick update here. And we do have a little bit more information, but the information is still coming out, but we wanted to get the most up-to-date info out to everybody. So my name is Lyle McDougall. I'm a certified financial planner, and I'm the managing director of Bakerview Financial Solutions. And with me, we have Matthew Fern, who's a CPA. Matt, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, Matthew, CPA for VMA Accounting and Consulting. Been an accountant for 26 years now, and really we have a number of different people in our office, and all of us kind of decided to become a specialist on each one of these new rules because they changed all the time. And
Yeah, so we've got, I mean, if you've attended our webinars before, there's not a lot, there's some new information, but we'll go through it. It might just reinforce what's already out there. Okay, so we're doing the best that we can. Most of the information we've gotten is from the government websites or the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, or from just Google. So we can go through this again. Like I said, I'm Lyle McDougall, certified financial planner. We're trying to just educate as many people as we can with all of the changes, because what happens is as soon as the government comes out with a new announcement, we inevitably get 800 phone calls or text messages from people. So we're just trying to get the information out to everybody as much as we can without missing anybody. So if we just say, hey, you know what, I can't get to you right now, but we do have something on YouTube, and we're never too busy, but we are busy. So that's kind of the thing. And we're going to just learn about the newest updates from the Canadian federal government as far as the packages and everything that's been released. And so in it for you is just information, education. Matt, I kind of talked about this last time. It's going to be hard. I mean, we're going to have a recession coming up here, or we're in a recession.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean it's impossible. We can get through this, and we will get through this. We've gone through these before. It's going to look different. It's going to be hard. It's going to be ugly, but we will have to get through it. And we just have to not give into the fear factor that the mainstream media is kind of pumping up here.
What I said to clients is, and this happens because I'm doing a lot of the year ends, take advantage of what you can take advantage of, because we're going to have to pay it anyways. And the government, I mean, I've been quite critical of the government, but if they didn't do this, we would be in a lot worse trouble. It would be a disaster out there. They've done their best.
Yeah.
I mean, they've learned their lesson on some stuff, but I mean, I like what they're doing. Some of the changes are great, but I knew they couldn't just stop the subsidies. I mean, the World Bank said that, so I'm glad they're basically trying to wean people off the subsidies. What they're trying to do, and I think that's the right approach here. So.
And again, these are all in response to mandated shutdowns of the economy. This is not this was not their idea to shut down. This was the government mandated from the Health Canada. All businesses were under orders to either shut down or modify your business practices. And this is in response to that, because if the government hadn't mandated shutdowns, small business may have been able to navigate this without that type of thing. But here we are. So. We're going to talk, all of these different types of small business are impacted. Small sole proprietorship, partnerships, and corporations. They all qualify for different parts of the different various benefits that we're going to talk about moving forward here. Okay, federal emergency benefits. So we had the CERB. Everybody loved the CERB. That's being transitioned to the Canada Relief Benefit.
Too many people CERB.
The CEBA, Matt's going to talk about the CEBA and the wage subsidy. CEBA is a loan program that's been extended now to applications are extended now to December the 31st.
Yeah, and this is where there's a lot of change.
Yeah, so they've extended it. Like I said, I didn't get to update this slide, or I forgot to I didn't see this one, but anyways, we got a typo. It's December 31st, 2020 is the program's been, and it's been updated to $60,000 if you qualify for it. Right, Matt?
Yeah, but and this is what I've been waiting for. They've changed the rules on how you qualify. We'll get to that because that's the biggest thing.
Okay.
And it was a good change because it basically is going to get in a lot of people that couldn't get in.
Okay. Wage subsidy is incredibly complicated and complex. Matt will talk about that. The CECRA, it's complicated and it's for landlords. They came out the day after we did our last webinar with the Canadian Emergency Rent Subsidy. There's question marks there because we really don't know what it is because they haven't announced it. And
Yeah,
we've got this
the old program definitely ends. You have to be qualified. You have to get the application in within the next 8 days.
8 days, but they have
Yeah.
no idea what it is.
Yeah, so July, no, this is the old one. And then that
Oh,
ends.
okay, okay.
So July, August, September, and I think maybe October, because I went on the website, it only mentioned those 3 months, but I'm pretty sure it's October too. And then what I think has happened is they're going to move away from CMHC because it wasn't handled very well by CMHC. And I'm not trying to put CMHC down. They're just not, they're not prepared for it, right? So
No.
that program I did for a number of clients, that was probably my most difficult one. It just, there was a lot of issues.
Yeah, I don't know anybody that really ever applied for it.
I know a few people that applied for it. I mean, for the tenant, it was great. I think for the landlord, for the most part, it was fine. Other than if he came up with any issues, then it was a bit of a disaster. But I think that's why they're moving away from it. And we'll on the next one on November 5th, we'll definitely have more information on the rent subsidy.
Yeah. So just to kind of, we'll do a shameless plug for our next one's on November the 5th. It's after the US election. It's after a lot of this stuff is going to come out. So we're going to have a lot better idea as to what's going to happen. And we're
that
going to
has a lot to do with it. I hate to say it. People think I'm crazy, but it does.
Oh, tons. It's political. A lot of these measures are political. It's people are trying to maximize their benefit as far as politicians and politics are concerned. But the next one, we also have Canadian Federation of Independent Businesses coming on with Matt and I. Pardon me. And he's gonna help us navigate with and what some of the things that the Canadian Federation of Independent Businesses are going to help us with. The sickness benefit and the caregiver benefit, those are all $500 a weekers. We kind of went over those last time, but basically with the caregiving benefit, that one is one person in the family can qualify for this if they're taking care of a child who is impacted from COVID or their daycares or things are shut down from COVID, not because you don't want your child to go to school. Correct, Matt?
Yeah, I did actually get a bit of clarification because some of my clients were phoning me up. They have special needs children. One of them, their son's on the spectrum, and he's actually refusing to go to school because the media. He is very scared, very scared. They're having a hard time with him right now. So I quickly got some understanding that in some they're going to review that case. One of the parents is going to have to stay home.
Okay.
And that's the sad part in the media side of things. Like this poor kid is so scared of going to school, he will not do it, and he's on the spectrum. So it's like pulling teeth to begin with.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in those situations, I think they're going to be fine. But again, the wording's a bit iffy.
Well, let's hope that the exceptions can always be made for these types of things. But again,
so too.
You nailed it on the head, Matt. Like a lot of people are just terrified and in massive fear. But here's what's happening in the real world is yes, numbers are going up, but not as many people are being in the hospital. People are not being hospitalized. People are not dying right now. They've learned to treat this a lot better. So we need our media and we need our powers that be to kind of, not that I'm an expert in infectious diseases, but I always look at say, okay, what's behind the numbers? What's the hospitalizations? What's the deaths? And those aren't up. And still in a population of 3 or 4 million people in BC, we've got literally very small amounts of people that have this. So we'll go into the specific ones. We've got provincial emergency measures. Most of these are done. BC benefit for workers. That was if you qualified for the CERB, you would get a one-time payment of $1,000. They're going to give you enhanced climate action tax credits. BC Hydro update. When they were getting subsidies, those are just starting to catch up now for people that have applied for the BC Hydro deferral, or not deferral, waiver of payment of their bill for the couple of months there in March, April, and May. When people were shut down, they deferred payments, or they actually waived payments. So those are finally getting caught up now. So good for BC Hydro to do that. And, they caught up in 4 months. So that's not too bad considering we have how many people in BC, right? So, and then the suspension of the BC employer health tax. This is a bone of contention for a lot of small business. If your payroll is over 500,000, you have to pay the 1% tax on your payroll to pay for the health tax.
That's more complicated than that. You have to look at associated companies as well.
Yeah.
So if you're associated with any other company, you might want to. Well, I'm going to tell you right now. Go talk to your accountant.
Yeah. That's the suspension of that is done. So this tax is not going anywhere. It's probably only going to get increased.
It's going to get increased. I think the same thing. Yep.
Yeah. Mortgage deferrals, they're done. Business loans deferrals are done. Service BC offices are all open. And the resources that I would recommend are the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. Do not go to mainstream media websites for any benefit information because you're not going to find any. They just want to talk about the numbers and how high the numbers are going. Okay. This is the new one. This is the Canada Relief Benefit. This is replacing the CERB. $500 per week that eligible participants must reapply for every 2 weeks through the Canada Revenue Agency. And the CRB up for 13 periods, so 2 weeks each, and will run from September 27th, 2020 to September 25th of 2021. This is a kind of a transition between CERB and the EI that we've traditionally had. Self-employed people qualify, Matt. You do not have to be incorporated. You can be a sole proprietor. You could have lost your business and you will qualify for this $500 every 2 week benefit or every week benefit, right, Matt?
Yeah, it's for self-employed people as well.
Yeah. So eligibility, you have to have a valid social insurance number. You have to be at least 15 years old, and you have to have made at least $5,000 in 2019 and 2020 or for the previous 12 months. Here is the big thing. You must be looking and available for work.
Yep.
And you must have had an average weekly income loss of at least 50%. So if you are self-employed and you've lost 50% of your average earnings, you will qualify for this. Now, I'm not sure on how they calculate that, Matt. Have you got any insights as that?
Which one? Sorry.
If you have to prove your weekly income loss of at least 50% if you're self-employed.
I think it's pay stubs. It'll be very similar to my understanding is it's very similar to the EI program.
Okay.
So you have to submit your earnings.
Okay. So you'll have to submit your financials if you're self-employed, which is kind of
you'll have to do your paychecks before and your paychecks after or something like that.
Yeah. You have to have voluntarily. So non-eligible is if you've quit your job. You failed to return to work when requested. So if your business was shut down and they want you to come back, and you've declined a reasonable offer to work, you're non-eligible. Here's the big one. This is what everybody wants to know. What if you refuse to work? What if you don't feel safe? What if you don't want to go back to work? What if you want to just stay home and play Nintendo? If you refuse reasonable work, so if somebody gives you a job offer, you will automatically lose 5 periods, so 10 weeks of benefit. And you must wait another 10 weeks before you can reapply. So you're basically giving yourself 10 weeks of no pay if you refuse to go to work. Anything to add on that, Matt?
I mean, there's always going to be those things. Well, I couldn't go back to work because of blah, 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 blah. But if you refuse work, this is where they're going to get you.
And who is, we had a question in the chat, who is policing these benefits? This is the EI auditors.
I'm going to tell you right now that if people will call. I've talked to a number of business owners and they said they've been screwed over by employees so much, and I'm not trying to put employees down. I'm pretty sure there's going to be a hotline and you basically say, I gave them a job offer, here's the email or the offer, and they refused it, and then they'll go do their job.
There's so many jobs that are open right now.
There are tons of jobs. Tons and tons and tons of jobs.
In the greater Vancouver area, just in Vancouver, Burnaby, Richmond area. I think we looked on Indeed, there was 33,000 jobs posted on Indeed in Vancouver, Burnaby, Richmond alone. That's not even including the Fraser Valley where Matt and I are out. So chances are that if you're looking for, unless you're not in the Lower Mainland, you're somewhere else. If you're looking for work, there's work for you to find. And a reasonable offer of work is basically what you were doing before. You can't say, well, I didn't get the same pay or I didn't get the same benefits. It's similar to what your job was before. So it has to be reasonable. And there will be a cheat line, and there will be all these other different types of things. It's going to be like EI back in the day, or UI back in the day when people would take advantage of it and all those different types of things. There's always lines that people can call. But yes, if you refuse to work, you're basically giving yourself 10 weeks without pay. So again, I think this is necessary. It's sadly necessary because we were looking online before we came on here to look at the unemployment rate in Canada, which is now around 10% unemployment. But what's the employment rate, Matt? The employment rate is the amount of percentage of people who are actually in the workforce that should be working.
Yeah.
And it's 59%. So we have 60% of people that are actually working, that out of the people that can actually work. So we have 40% of people that are able to work that are still staying home. That's huge. That's a lot of people. So we got to get these people back to work. Rental subsidy.
I'll say is a number of businesses. I mean, I've heard a couple of people say to me, "Oh, my aunt can't work because she's got lung issues." I'm telling you, I've talked to a lot of employers that are like, "Well, happy to have you stay at home. We'll give you all the equipment.
Yeah.
You just need people with the skills." So I've heard a couple of people say, "Well, I'm sickly, so I just can't do anything." And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't think that's going to stand up anymore, because a lot of businesses are offering working from home and all the other stuff." So
yeah. I mean, a lot of people use this as an excuse to just stay home and reset and do whatever. But here's the thing: we got 40% of the actual people that can work that are not working. That's a huge number that are. And if you go out to like a lot of these franchises, smaller businesses, restaurants, that type of thing, we have a lot of people that are in their 50s and 60s that are actually working in those jobs, and not the young people that should be there. It's crazy. Matt, you wanted to talk about the Canadian wage subsidy, right?
Yeah, so the wage subsidy has changed quite a lot. And as you guys know, it's been a good program. It's kept a lot of businesses going. We do a lot of calculations, and what I'll always say is, if you don't think you qualify, go talk to a professional like us or somebody, because there's more than one way to qualify. They made this program really, really diverse and dynamic, I guess is the word I would use. It's pretty good. It's a good program. I will tell you that the more I've looked at it. But the changes are, you can still apply, but they're giving you less and less and less. They're trying to wean you off of the wage subsidy. This wage subsidy also seems to recognize if you have massive spikes in the drop of income, that will also increase your wage subsidy. So they've done a good job with this one. The more I've kind of looked at it, the more I've delved into it. It's kept businesses going. Cost us a lot of money, but it's kept a lot of businesses going, and it's kept people employed. I mean, we're just talking about unemployment, but without this, unemployment would be a disaster.
Yeah.
So you're going to see it's less and less and less, but go talk to a tax professional. I mean, I've had a number of people tell me, "Oh, we didn't qualify." We get on their books because they only did it one way. Now there's more than one way to qualify for this. And we go through the books, we're like, actually you qualify for 3 months. And they're like, "Well, that would be great because we're at the end of our line of credit." And so that's what it's meant for, right? And for those kind of companies.
Yeah. And the wage subsidy it's a very complicated, like they give you the calculations to figure it out.
It's wrong.
Oh, really?
Boxes. Yeah. So if you put it in certain boxes, it puts 0 at the end. We actually fixed it. And we actually do our own spreadsheets, which Revenue Canada, because we've actually sent them to Revenue Canada, did like them. And when DJ pointed out the error, and they're like, "Well, yeah, we know." So there was an error in one of the fields. And if you put 0 in that field, bigger in the field than 0 in the second field, it zeroed out the whole line. And people don't know this. And they're just calculating this out and costing themselves a lot of money. Like one client, I'm not kidding you, it's over $100,000. It's a lot of money they lost.
Wow. They
miscalculated. They thought they would do it themselves and save a couple bucks. I think it cost them $99,000.
Wow. That's a lot of money, especially if you're a small business. I would definitely recommend getting somebody to figure it out. I looked at the calculations. They're not easy to figure out if you just do it on your own.
Well, a lot of people are just doing it one way. There's more than one way. And like as soon as you realize there's more than one way, yeah, it takes time to calculate out some of those ways. It really does. But we're talking a lot of money. And if you get lost on the Excel, just pay somebody. Might be the $1,000 you ever spent.
Yeah. And how many different ways are there to calculate it?
I think BJ said there's 5. There's like, you look at last year's, you look at the first 2 months, you look at there's 2 other ways, and then you can add in where WIP. There's a lot of calculations to it.
Mm-hmm. So basically, this will subsidize you up to 75% of your payroll if you qualify on your reduced
Not anymore,
income.
so it gets less and less and less.
Okay. So
the first 2 months, yes, exactly what you just said is the case. Kind of now it's going less and less and less.
Okay. And a lot of businesses that have reopened, they're starting to get their feet back under them now.
They are, and that's it's, like I said, it's a dynamic program. And when it first came out, I wasn't the biggest fan of it. I'm like, oh, this is going to cost us a lot of money. But after talking to, I've done, a lot of business owners would not have survived.
Yeah. Well, and we know that WestJet, Air Canada, they're all on this wage subsidy right now. So we're technically paying for Air Canada and WestJet's wages. Well, and they've still got record like they've laid off so many people in Air Canada and WestJet. It's crazy. If you were a flight attendant and you were a newer flight attendant, you're not probably going back to work for a while. The sickness benefit, that one we kind of glazed over real quick, but that benefit is for if you're impacted from COVID-19. If you have symptoms and you have to stay home. This is the one that the NDP wanted them to sneak into the speech. And it looks like they still have no legal, there's no legislation for it yet. So we're kind of just don't really know what it is, but it is going to exist. So that if you are self-employed or if you don't have EI or sick leave at your work and you get sick, that you'll qualify because of COVID, not because of anything else. You will, if you have COVID and you stay home, you'll qualify for the $500 a week to get back.
This is only COVID.
Only COVID, nothing else. And that's from what I understand and from reading that on the government website. Matt, you wanted to talk about the loan, the $40,000 loan. Now it's $60,000.
Yeah, there's tons of changes here, and I think there's going to be more. And what they've done is they've expanded the loan to make it easier for people to qualify. I'll give you a few examples that I've seen. Again, I will have more information on November 5th. I've been waiting for the banks to update and get more information. I got there was some information on the 9th. It passed legislation, so we knew it was coming. And then since then, I don't have a lot. I check every day. I check the website every day. It was updated on the 16th. So they are extending it. You can apply up to December 31st from October 31st, which is a big one.
Yep.
And the way that they explained it on here, now again, I haven't released the legislation yet, is the extra $20,000, you only have to pay back $10,000 if you pay back the loan. So it's basically another free $10,000, which is really generous by the government. I think the main reason for doing this was they had a lot of complaints from people saying we just need a little bit more. We've run out of our line of credit. That's kind of what's happened. That's what I hear from a lot of people. It's like, we didn't really want to spend it, but Matt, I had to, and now I'm completely out of money. And I'm like, okay, well, there's another $20,000 coming, and then I get called every day.
Yeah.
So most of the people that had under $20,000 in payroll are the ones. There are some changes. So I'll give you an example of a change. If you were self-employed and you did not have a business bank account, but just a regular bank account, they're expanding it. So, and again, I haven't seen this. This is what's being announced, okay? That you should be able to maybe change your bank account to a business bank account and then qualify for the $40,000, well, $60,000 now. The other thing that I've read through this 4 or 5 times, and people are like, I'm just taking the money and I put it in another bank account. Well, after rereading it, I undid that because you have to kind of run through it with expenses. You have to run through that money. Money's coming in, but run through that money with expenses. So I recommend everybody make a spreadsheet with the expenses that you're using this money for. That's what I did. I'm making a spreadsheet because the government could ask for it at any time after reading it. They can ask for your records. Yeah. So I'm creating a spreadsheet saying, okay, my rent is $2,000 a month. So March, April, May, June, July, August, September, there's $2,000 a month. Here's my photocopier. All of my bills are on this thing, and I'm well over well, I think I'm up to $56,000. I'm almost there.
Yeah.
Because then when they ask for it, I just hand it to them. There you go.
Yeah.
And the faster you do that, the better. So I do recommend doing that.
Now, Matt, here's something that you and I can kind of, here's a bonus for the people that are attending and that are going to watch ours as compared to somebody else. What are some real life scenarios of what a good idea for, and I have some ideas as thoughts as to what you could use the money for.
So what I'll tell you what the smart people have done. So I have a manufacturing company. I can't tell you what they do, but they're a manufacturing company. Their company was basically done. Aerospace, nothing. He was getting nothing. He pivoted his whole business. He got this $40,000. He went out, bought a new piece of machinery, $10,000, and he went out door to door, and he's changed his whole business model, and now he makes something completely different and has survived. So he uses $40,000 to pivot his business because he knows he can come back to the aerospace, but aerospace is going to be dead for him for the next 18 months. He knows it.
Yeah.
So what did he do? He got another piece of equipment, about $10,000, did some advertising, went out, and then is buying different material. And that's what I'm saying to everybody, pivoting your business. Look around. If your business starts to fail, it's like when we went from newspaper to the internet. The companies that moved with the change in the world are fine. The other aren't doing so hot, right? I mean, cell phones basically killed the coffee news business. I mean, once in a while I'll read coffee news, but for the most part, I read my phone. And I used to read coffee news every week. That's just an example. It's not I'm getting on coffee news.
No, yeah.
I used to read the What's On. I haven't seen that in a while. I used to like getting the What's On because I knew it was on. And then but
the Facebook, social media has taken over a ton of that. So you can pivot, here's kind of the word that Matt and I, and you're going to hear this more and more and more from Matt and I as we transition out of the emergency part of this into, you got to pivot your business and to get with the new times. And an example of what pivoting, you can take your money and you can invest in your social media marketing. You can invest in your marketing plan. You can invest in some staff. You can invest it in your business. That's what it's there for. It's not there for you to sit and invest it. You got to invest in your business. You can't just take it and spend it on a Ferrari or a down payment on a Lambo, right? Like
on first from Uncle Trudeau. The other thing that I know of is I had somebody that was doing immigration services, and immigration has plummeted.
Yep.
And then you know what they did? They pivoted into getting millennials back into the workforce, because millennials really are the ones who really don't want to go back to work.
Yeah.
She started to create a program their parents can send their kids to get them online. It's online. And she's doing quite well with that. But she pivoted her business. She said, same business model, just different client.
Yeah.
Instead of getting somebody from outside of Canada, or immigrant coming here ready to be in the workforce, she's got these millennials, and I'm not trying to bag on millennials. It's just look at the statistics.
Yeah.
She pivoted her business, and now she's doing quite well. And a lot of people are quite happy with their services.
Yeah. So all of these things are and again, they keep moving the goalposts and these types of things, but what this loan will allow you to do, if you're struggling to keep your doors open, you're going to have to figure something out in your business. You have to adapt. This will allow you as a small business entrepreneur to pivot your business. That's what we do best as self-employed small business people, is we pivot, we adapt, we deal with what's coming down the pike, and we just deal with it. This allows us to do that. We don't want handouts, but this loan is a great tool for most small business to do it. And then you pay it back when you pay it back. And it's 5% interest after 2022. So it's interest free until 2022. And then once that hits, then you pay 5%, which is still a really good interest rate. It's better than anything you're going to get in the retail market for a business.
Oh, yeah.
All day long.
The way it was kind of designed too, just one last point on it, is that 10%, the reason why they were giving you the $10,000 is they're saying, okay, well, we're going to be shut down for 2 months.
Yep.
We're going to basically pay your base cost for 2 months for small. Let's just say you have a $33,000 rent, and then you got other things. That's what it was meant for. But they've expanded it, recognizing that this has gone further.
Yeah.
And I'm glad they've expanded it to other businesses, because there's lots of businesses that didn't need it in the beginning, but now do need it. And a lot of them are just smaller self-employed people that ripped through $50,000 worth of expenses.
Yep.
What it is.
And then you're done. And then you're done.
And then you're bankrupt.
Yep.
And your family, because a
And,
lot of people have kids, and
and
that's
we're
not
talking about flattening the curve. Well, what they've done with a lot of these benefits is they flatten the curve
debt.
on financial fallout. That's really what they've done with a lot of these packages and things. Like, they've extended out the people. Like, some people are going to go bankrupt if their books were bad before COVID hit. They're going to be 10 times worse. They're not, any amount of money that you're going to give them is not going to be good. So the people that were barely holding it together before COVID, they're really struggling. But if you can, again, we need to pivot. Again, I keep thinking of Ross and friends yelling pivot to Chandler about carrying the couch up the stairs. But that's really, at the end of the day, what's going on. Okay, let's do an economic update and talk about pivot. We'll economic update here. I showed this slide last 2 weeks ago. I haven't got any update numbers, but we're not going to get one for a couple of weeks here. But household debt, basically, we kind of figured out that people deferred their mortgages and then took their mortgage deferrals and paid down their credit cards. Not really. Sorry, go ahead, Matt.
I think it's great. It's good that there's less debt, but the banks don't like it.
And here's the thing: is the banks have lots and lots of clout in Ottawa. So if the banks don't like it, it's not gonna fly much, because there's a ton of profit that would be taken out of the banks here. So this is going to adjust. Like I said last time, we're good Canadians. We're going to go and spend our way back into 170 to 180% of debt ratio. Just wait till Christmas time. Christmas is coming. People are going to go crazy. That's the one thing I'm going to tell you is don't make any silly or rash decisions in these times. Now is the time.
I agree.
Put your head down, work, and then opportunities will become available. If you make a rash decision or a bad decision right now, and the opportunities come, you're not going to be able to pull the trigger on those opportunities. But this is a very telling slide that we've never seen. And it's a shift of where the wealth is being distributed and where it's being put. If there was no mortgage deferrals and this happened, I would say this is a wonderful thing, but mortgage deferrals just mean that you're not paying your mortgage for 6 months, but it doesn't mean the payments go away. They just add it to the end of your term or when you sell your property. So it's again, another Band-Aid solution for what's going on, but at the same time, it's much necessary for the type of situation that we were in. Anything to add on that one, Matt?
I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I also knew somebody that paid their mortgage and let their credit card go into default. That probably was not the best choice.
No. Yeah.
I kept on saying to them, your interest rate's 2.95 over here. It's 22% over there. Yeah, I mean, they spend their money on. I'm glad people got their debt down. I mean, I know that is a good thing.
Yeah, I think that's fine. But again, in a situation, this is a very telling stat of what the actual people were doing, because in order to drive that number down, that percentage, 13% or whatever it was, that's a lot of money.
That's a lot of debt being paid.
Money is being printed at record rates. So I showed this slide last time. I'm not sure where it's going, if we flatten this curve or not, but this is ridiculous. It's the only word I can use as far as the Bank of Canada's printing of money. If you look at my arrow here, we can go back to 2008, 2009 with the United States. This is the United States quantitative easing with the bank, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, the banks failing.
Yeah, that was the bailout money.
That's the bailout money that they printed out to deal with all the bank foreclosures and all of that other stuff. And this is the United States now. They're not even printing as much money. We've got Australia, Japan. This isn't a percentage of the actual GDP year over year growth. So we have so much stuff on the balance sheet now that we've printed our own money, and then the government the government of Canada is printing money, and the Bank of Canada is buying Canadian bonds back from the government. So we're basically funding our own debt through printing of more money. It's basically the gist of it. And it's quantitative easing 3.0 as far as because we had a little bit of a bump here in 2011, 2012, 2013 in quantitative easing in the United States. Canada, again, immune to it. Even in 08, 09, Canada was very, very, they were only up 50%, 60% from what they normally do. And we were in the recession with the Americans. So if you remember what happened to our dollar, Matt, in 2008, 2009, 2010, our dollar went sky high because the United States had so much money in the market that there was just our exchange rate was crazy. So do the math over here. The Canadian dollar is got a ton of Canadian dollars out there. It's inevitably going to drive our dollar down. Our buying power is going to go down. All of these things. So these are all things that we're going to have to adapt. If you're a business person, if you're self-employed, understand where your inventory is coming from. Understand where you're buying your stuff, because you're going to be buying with Canadian dollars at a weakened rate. So maybe try and get inventory up front, because next year, it's not going to be great. Buying power is going to be eroded. Matt, anything to add on that one?
I'm just wondering when the timing's going to happen. Like I know the World Bank is aware of this because we've been downgraded, right? But we just haven't seen the drop to the U.S. dollar. I come back to this election. I think there's going to be a lot that'll happen with the U.S. dollar from the election. Either way, who wins?
Yeah.
So I am waiting for this to go down. I really am. I'm waiting for our dollar to plummet a little bit. You can't print this amount of money and not have it go down. It doesn't make sense to me. How it's stabilized. I don't know. I thought it would have gone down before this, to be honest with you, Lyle.
And again, I think the people that are in the markets, they're doing what we're telling. They're doing not what we tell them, but they're doing what we recommend our clients to do: is don't make any rash decisions. Keep your head down, go to work, do your thing. They're not making any huge rash decisions right now because they want to see where everything kind of plays out. There's so much flux, and they keep changing the goalposts. If the United States if Biden wins and they shut down the U.S. economy, well, now everything's out the window, right? Like if he mandates a shutdown after this, Trump basically said, we're not shutting down. So we now know that what's going to happen if he gets voted in. But if Biden gets in, he's not ruled that out. So if he bows down to political pressure to shut down the economy, because they never really shut it down, like Canada did. If they shut down, well, that's big problems for them in a lot of things. So we're not going to. There's so much flux right now. It's just.
You know what I find crazy about that is, did not the World Health Organization and 3,500 doctors just write a letter that says shutting down unless your hospitals are overrun is a bad idea? Did that not just happen? I think it did.
So. I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, and the reason for that, they said, was there's more people dying from the cure than the problem, because of all the overdose deaths and the mental illness that is skyrocketing across the world. Skyrocketing. Suicides are through the roof. So again, it becomes political. There's people want to talk about the World Health Organization from February, March, these politicians, and I'm not picking a politician, I'm picking them all. Yeah. But we get this new report that says this is not a good idea. And I find that very fascinating. Why
we have the benefit of hindsight with the shutdowns in Canada to see that maybe they did overdo a lot of what they did. However, that I don't know, and the future generations are going to have to judge what was done.
We're not going to know for 2 years.
Yeah, you got 2 years, and like I said in the last webinar, we're in the third inning of a 9-inning ball game right now. So. We got a long ways to go. Mortgage deferrals, I don't know. We'll see, because the job market is so good in the Vancouver, BC area, and that's where you and I kind of, I think you're going to see there could be a 7 to 10% reduction in housing prices, but I honestly don't know. I mean, depending on the job market, foreclosures could go up. But here's the thing. We don't have that factor of people that just refuse to go to work. And then they're going to get foreclosed on because they're not going to have anything. If you refuse to go to work, how stubborn are you? Because you're not going to get the CRB. You're not going to get anything else. So you're not going to be able to pay for anything if you don't have anything. And universal basic income is not coming. So again, there's lots of jobs. We have to see what's going to happen here. But again, there's so much financial stimulus not even stimulus, just government money sitting in the market right now that it's gone crazy.
The one market that if you actually are following it, I believe the Toronto rental market is a disaster, downtown Toronto.
Yeah.
People are realizing you don't have to live in an expensive area. I can go live in Hamilton work 1 day a week in the office and 4 days a week at home. And I know that's happening in downtown Vancouver. I think this was 2 months ago, they had over 300 million or 300,000 up for sublease office space in downtown Vancouver, because offices are just like the people over right next door to us came to talk to me saying, oh, you know what? Everybody's working from home. We need one office. Can you, we sublet our place out. You're seeing a change in the market for sure, especially commercial.
People are going to pivot again, pivot, like, yep. Right? Like that's what's happening is people are going to pivot. So either as business people, we pivot ahead of the curve, or we pivot after it's done and we've missed out.
Yeah, that is going to change the market. I know that the downtown Toronto rental market has changed quite significantly, and that's going to happen in Vancouver as well.
Well, I know that a lot of people are leaving Vancouver, and then you're seeing a lot of the homeless problems and that type of thing that's going on in the downtown cores of a lot of cities. Ridership on transit's way down. Traffic, I don't know if you've noticed, but like on the highway, I've been stuck once on the highway in the last 6 months, whereas it used to be an everyday thing.
The pivot to working from home really has done a lot for the climate, to be honest with you.
Well, and that kind of gets me into another. We can kind of talk about that later, but the economic updates. Here's what my biggest fear is with the shutdowns, Matt. And again, I don't know. I have nothing to base it on. It's just a gut instinct, but we've survived the shutdowns relatively okay. Fiscally not great, but it is what it is. But what if they shut down the economy for climate change purposes? What if they force us to stay home because no more commuting, no more flying, no more doing any of these things?
I don't think they're going to be able to do that.
I hope not, but again, that's a big chunk. Like tourism is down 80% in Canada. The only tourism that we've got is within Canada because we've shut down non-essential travel. But if you notice, like you saw what happened in China, that their factories weren't spewing out their garbage in the air, and everything else that's going on. Like, can you see in 5 years from now, if carbon starts spiking or something like that, that they shut down they do a shutdown again?
I think they're going to try their best to minimize carbon. I mean, the interesting thing about what people said is, and you can search this on the internet, they said fish and dolphins and everything else will not come back to Vienna for 100 years after we stop using it. It took 2 weeks. They said we'll never, Los Angeles will never, it'll take 50 years to dissipate all the carbon in the air to see LA. It took 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And I'm not a scientist, but scientists were saying this 3 years ago. And now they're like, and I'm not saying climate change is not an issue. Carbon is an issue. But I think we have to slow down that one. I think we've done a really good job with changing things. I see a lot more Teslas on the road. I mean, the government's given some really good incentives to buy a Tesla in your company. You get to write it off all in 1 year, and instead of having $30,000, you get $55,000. And I think that's going to expand.
Is that only for Tesla, or is it for all electronic?
Only electric vehicles, but all electric vehicles. It can't be a hybrid. It has to be an all electric vehicle. But that is a really nice benefit. If you're having a great year and you're over $500,000, yeah, go buy an electric vehicle, because you're going to be able to get underneath it then, right? 1 year write off on your CCA. Fantastic.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody's having a really good year this year, but next year.
The other problem I foresee, and nobody wants to talk about it, is we do need to create more clean electricity. We're all going to go to electric cars, but we're not going to build another dam to get the electrics to work. Yeah. That's really my issue too, is we have to, but it has to be clean. It can't be coal. That's why, I don't try to get political with this stuff, but there's a cost and effect. Okay, we're getting rid of vehicles that spew out gas. Okay, well, we got to create more energy because they're going to be eating up the energy on the grid, right? I mean, is that not what's going to happen?
Yeah, and I talked to somebody who knows people in high level at BC Hydro, and the high level BC Hydro people are saying we need site C dam, we need site D, E, F, and G as well, because of the electrical demands that are going to be
electrical vehicle demand. Yeah, and nobody's talking about it. Like, see, the environmentalists went no fossil fuels on the road. Great. You know what? I understand where you're coming from with that, but we need clean energy, and hydro is clean energy.
Yeah. Well, sure. Well, and if you, yeah, I mean, we can get it. We can do another webinar on that stuff.
But I can see what you're saying though. Is this a test pilot? You know, if you've been watching what's happening in Melbourne, Australia, I'm telling you right now, and I was told this by a politician in Canada, that they are monitoring that closely to see
Yeah.
how the public reacts. That is a democratic country that is literally under military law. And every country in the world is watching what's happening with those people. Are they going to revolt? Are they not going to revolt? They're starting to now. There's a big to do.
Yeah.
They are literally arresting people with small children. Like, so.
For not abiding by the lockdown rules and regulations.
Absolutely, but then because of COVID, they let out rapists and murderers. I mean, go figure.
Yeah, I know. So we can go with the economic of it. So tourism down 80%. We all know that. Government debt, we kind of talked about that with our government debt is going to, and we actually, before we came online, Matt was telling me that with like our debt's going to be $1 trillion, but they're not factoring in the CEBA loans, the $40,000 to $60,000 loans for small business. So you just factor the amount of money that's been generated in, because it's not an actual expense, it's a loan.
The rent subsidy is a loan they're going to forgive too. So what's actually happening is they're putting this debt on the books, but they know they're going to have to write this debt off, right? Yeah. So they're basically saying, oh, we're $500 billion in debt. It's actually more than that because they're putting debt on the books that they're going to have to forgive in 2021, forgive in 2022, and forgive in 2023. So if you add in all that debt, it's a lot higher than
you're well over the $1 trillion mark now if you factor in all of the stuff that's going to be forgiven. And they're basically they're flattening the curve. They're extending out the suffering on the accounting part.
3 years. Yeah. And I can show you that as an accountant. I mean, it's ingenious when you kind of think about it. It's a problem now. We just, we're not in government anymore. Look at you. You did a horrible job with the economy.
If we do it for our own clients, they get really mad at that. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Bond buying. So we kind of talked about the bond buying. The government of Canada is buying Canadian bonds. Here's one that I didn't think would ever happen in Canada.
Oh, the negative interest rates.
Negative interest rates. Oh. So Matt, what do you have to say on the negative interest rates? Because they did it in Europe and Japan, and it flopped on its face.
Lyle, this raises its ugly head because when you start to see negative interest rate right before we're printing money, just kind of gives you the feeling of they better keep this under control or we're going to have hyperinflation on the other side.
Yep.
Hyperinflation, like it would be worse in the 80s.
Well, or even stagflation, which is even where you have inflation but stagnant growth.
Negative interest rates basically mean that money is worth more, like in the future, and that's not good. That means.
Well, look at what happened in Germany after World War I. You had to take a wheelbarrow of money to go get a loaf of bread.
That's hyperinflation, and that happens after negative inflation. So
yeah,
the interest rate is being basically pegged in the way that I read the throne speech. I mean, maybe you read it differently, but I think they're basically saying for the next 3 years, interest rates ain't going up. That's what I think they basically.
You got 5 years of interest rates staying.
Yeah, I agree, because that's basically what they said in the throne speech. We can afford this because we have low interest rates. Oh, that's an interesting statement.
That is
guaranteed low interest rates for the next 5 years.
That's like having an introductory rate on your credit card. Hey, come in, move your credit card over here. We'll give you 5% interest rate on your credit card, and then it goes up to 21.
Interest rate 26%.
Anyways, unemployment we kind of talked about. Immigration we also discussed. Immigration is way down,
and that's not good either.
That is terrible for Canada. I know some people is a hot button. We need immigrants in Canada. We need them.
Yeah, we do.
We need lots of them.
We do, and the more skilled, the better. We need immigrants. People don't realize with our aging population, our only choice is to bring in immigration, and I'm all for immigration, but let's bring in. There's a lot of skilled people that want to come to Canada. Let them in.
Yep. And that's what I think again, we need to pivot as a government and say, okay, how can we attract these people and to come to our country? Not just every Tom, Dick, and Harry out there, but the people that we want doctors, we want nurses, we want lawyers, accountants, financial people, we want entrepreneurs, we want all those people from other countries. Come on in, bring it on. Like that's what we really want.
I do a lot of work for immigrants to Canada. Lots, actually. I mean, Canada is a very, up until recently, was a lot easier place than the United States to come here and immigrate here and do business. I mean, we're really lucky in our church. Just recently, we had some people from Africa move here, and they've been fantastic to move in. The only thing I'd say is I think we really need to revisit one of the poor gentlemen is a dentist. And he went to a very good school in Africa. And I know it's African. Everyone's like, oh, it's probably not the same. He's a good dentist. And he doesn't have his credentials. He has to go to school for like 4 years.
Yep.
They need to have an equivalency exam is what I think they need to do. Right. The nice thing about the CPA body is the CPA body, there's an equivalency exam, and then you're fine. You can become a CPA anywhere in the world. And I feel they need to kind of do that because I think more skilled labor would come. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, there is that, and then, but the English as a second language is a problem with a lot of those things, especially the medical ones.
To spend more money on the school. So we've got some people from Iran that my parents are really heavily involved with, right? I think you know this well. They had to wait 2 years to get into an English second language class.
Wow.
Our church just paid for their classes because it's important for them to integrate into Canadian society.
Yeah.
We need these classes now. Like, let's fund them.
Well, and again, I think this is all fallout. This is all going to be part of the fallout. I hope, anyways, like some positive changes to what's going on in our economy, like streamlining some processes and less government red tape. My big fear is that the government red tape increases because of more reliance on big government, and that's the direction that they're going in. So again, we'll see what happens, and if some sanity can prevail in Ottawa, that we're not just going to print money and just spend it all because, hey, if I can print it, I may as well spend it. Yeah, that's great. And that's really like naive to think that as far as your economic stimulus packages, let's just print more money. We got it. Let's print it. No, you don't. It doesn't work like that. So post-COVID financial planning, that money-making machine, that is who you are. So do whatever it is you can do to make yourself your income. You are a money-making machine. Get out there, do your thing, go to work, put your head down. If you have any big decisions to make, contact a professional. It'll be worth the time and the money that you spent to contact a professional before you made anything big decisions.
Another thing on that, Lyle, is I know two people that went actually to school during COVID. They were basically furloughed, and they did accelerated courses online. One actually got their master's degree actually last month. They started in March when this happened, and I mean they just pounded through the courses. Whenever we're talking about the money-making machine, investing in yourself is always, always, always a good idea. I always say to my kids when I talk to the young people at our church or anything like that, if somebody's going to pay for a course, especially at work, take it.
Yep.
If somebody's going to, if you're in, say, construction and they're going to pay for somebody to be a safety course, take it. You're now more employable. If somebody's going to give you a specialized ticket, take it. And I've always thought that you always invest back in yourself, because they always say we're going to have 5 different jobs in our lifetime these days. If you've got more qualifications, better on you. So if you do find yourself at home, take advantage, go invest in yourself, because you are the money-making machine.
Yeah. I'd recommend doing something specific that is usable in any kind of industry or
Absolutely.
trade. Just general studies is not going to further your benefits. Everybody, like, I don't know, you find some places in Canada where that's full of people that are working at Starbucks that have master's degrees. And they have Starbucks employees have MBAs in some of these smaller towns. It's crazy because they have their masters in whatever, and they can't.
No, absolutely. But that's what I'm saying about it. It's furthering your career with good stuff.
But yeah, take like some sort of courses, get whatever, and find it specific to your industry. And that is a good pivot as well. Get yourself more employable. See what's going to happen in the world and what's going to happen, and pivot your business into that. Okay, so we're going to wrap it up. Hopefully if there's any questions, just throw it in the chat. The next webinar is on November the 5th at 10 o'clock with Matt, myself, and the Canadian Federation of Independent Business.
And we'll have a lot more information.
And there is going to be a ton of information. So if you have questions and you want to know how the Federation of Independent Business is helping small business in Ottawa and Victoria and like your local municipalities, please tune in for that one, because it's going to be very, 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 there's going to be a ton of information. So I'm really excited about having Darcy on from the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. And yeah, thanks for your time, everybody. I'm recording it, so I'm going to post this up on YouTube, and yeah, it'll be up there shortly. So anything else to add, Matt?
No, I think just stay positive.
Yeah. Stay positive, and the word of the day is pivot. So
absolutely, that is. And if you need help with that, I mean, there's a lot of good opportunities out there. Lots,
yeah.
a lot of businesses that are up for sale
I know. I know. Like majority of my clients, the biggest problem they have right now is staffing. They can't find people to work. So,
yeah.
Go to work, get a job, do your thing, put your head down, and think good things will happen to you.